Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to SKC Office Hours. My name is Sarah Krom, and I'm managing partner of SKC & Co. CPAs. Just a couple of housekeeping items on this Friday morning. We are recording this, so please be aware of that. It will be posted on our website if you want to refer back to it, or if any of your colleagues might be interested in today's presentation but weren't able to attend. It should be posted hopefully by the end of today. I do want to introduce Karen Donaway, who is our Director of Marketing. She will help field any questions that you may have throughout the presentation. Please submit those through the chat. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And then we also have Brittany, who is our Marketing Assistant, on the call. She will be posting some surveys to kind of take your pulse and make sure everybody's still awake and with us on Friday morning. So we are very, very lucky today to have Michele Siekerka. She is the President and CEO of New Jersey Business and Industry Association. Michele, do you want to take just a quick couple of seconds to introduce yourself and say a little bit about the NJBIA?
Sure. Thank you so much for hosting this morning, Sarah and Karen. It's really a pleasure to join you here at Office Hours. Happy Friday morning to everyone. Michele Siekerka, the President and CEO with the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. We represent about 10,000 businesses all across the state of New Jersey, close to 1 million jobs. And that's everything, as I like to say, from the corner pizzeria to the 1,000-employee call center to the biggest utilities and hospital systems across the state of New Jersey. Our sweet spot is that small to mid-sized business where we tirelessly advocate for an affordable and regionally competitive business climate here in the state of New Jersey. And because we know how difficult that is, on the opposite side, we provide a lot of products and services to help our members keep their cost of business down. So you can learn about us. I'll put some information in the chat in a bit, but njbia.org. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions about anything that we do. And we just launched a brand new website that's super user-friendly. And actually, when you sign on, you set up your preferences. And so when you go on, it'll always give you what you want to see first. So we're really excited about all the great things going on at BIA as we continue to help New Jersey's business community really come out of COVID, which we know is a challenge that we'll be talking about today.
Absolutely. Thank you. And for those on the call who don't know Michele, there's nobody better to have this morning to talk all things economy and pro-business than Michele. So we're very, very lucky to have her. So Michele, let's get into the meat of this. I mean, things are kind of going crazy and the housing market is insane. If you want to do any kind of construction, there's a huge delay. Everything's triple the cost. I know we tried to order laptops at our office. There's a 3-month lag. I mean, what is going on? What can we expect? What's causing some of these crazy things nationwide that we're dealing with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's just start with the housing market, right? I mean, first and foremost, it's all about a few things. It's the plight of people coming out of the cities and remote work. Right. Workers are upgrading their home in order to accommodate their ability to work from home. You had people who had children at home as well. And so everybody was like, I have to make my home now be an ecosystem for all things that have to function in case we have to do this again. And we know many folks are going to stay remote as well. So a lot of people upgraded their homes in order to put in, offices and studies and things like that. But that plight out of the cities into the suburbs, I chuckle a little bit because we actually sold our 25-year family home in the fall because it was our time to downsize. My 29-year-old twins are out on their own, and we had a couple of life events in our family that just caused us to make some moves. But a couple of years ago, I had said to my husband, wow, we got to sell this house because we're sitting on a dinosaur in suburbia, the typical center hall colonial on the 3/4 acre lot or whatever. And I'm like, next generation doesn't want these houses, and now forget it. they are just going out of premium because people are looking for that extra space and bigger. So, the housing bubble and the overinflated prices is real. I think one thing though, and I've heard economists talk to this because I asked the question, are we going to have a bubble as a result of this? Remember the housing bubble we had back in, 2009, 10. And the difference this time is that people, you remember, the credit underwriting is very stringent. You can't do deals like you did, 10 or 20 years ago. It's just impossible given the underwriting requirements. A lot of people are actually coming in with cash. And these people who are buying these overinflated homes are actually, doing it with the ability to pay. So it's not a mortgage issue. It's a cash issue. And then there's some pluses and minuses about remote work. And I know we'll get into that a little bit more as well. But for the employer, they can hire from anywhere, almost in the world now, right? Depending upon how much collaboration they want in the office versus remote. And for the employee, it provides that flexibility. But again, I think we'll get into that a little bit more.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So let's jump into some things specific to New Jersey, and I kind of want to get the pulse of the audience. And Brittany's going to throw up a survey for everybody to respond to. How many of you are concerned with the current state of the economy, specifically in New Jersey? We'll just take a couple seconds for people to respond, and then we'll share the results. I know for me as a Jersey girl, it kind of pains me when we always rank it as the worst type of state to do business in at the bottom of all those lists. Okay, so it's about 3/4 of the people are certainly concerned. So that we're going to talk all about that. So what can business owners do, Michele? I mean, what can we do to create a more pro-business economy and try to really do grassroots and get out there and make change as business owners ourselves that impact us and that are affecting us in New Jersey? And we'll get into some of those specifics of what those are.
Yeah, I mean, we have to continue to put pressure on our policymakers. You know, they call the shots here. We need better pro-business policy, and that's what BIA advocates tirelessly for, you know, each and every day. You know, why do I say that? Taxes, cost of doing business, employer mandates, you know, that cost real money, like, you know, hard money for folks. Every time there's a new mandate, paid sick leave, wages. I mean, I can go on and on with a list. That's money to you, you know, from your bottom line that causes you to have to think differently about how you deliver your products and services and take care of your workforce. You know, healthcare costs, bureaucratic red tape, licensing, permit requirements. It all takes time and money. So what can businesses do? You can do your part by being part of the voice through grassroots. Putting that pressure on your local policymakers. And we have ways to do that. We have great grassroots tools at NJBIA, be it through our employer legislative committees that meet at the local level to help bring your regional and local policymakers to the table to talk directly, or through tools that are automatic emails where we can go and literally flood a box on a policy. And all you do is literally hit send and it populates with your name and goes right to your legislator. So we have ways to do it, but it's our collective voice that's going to make a difference. And you know what? To get the business community, you know, en masse is very, very challenging. You're also busy. You know, it's not, we're not a union, right? We are all individual people and employers and groups, and to get us mobilized is very challenging. And so the more we can do it at the local level and then take that locality and build it up to the state level, you know, that's what we do. We bring it all together. So we need you at that local level. So be part of the voice along with us.
Absolutely. We need to band together. And that was something I learned a couple years ago when I was president of the NJCPA. And I know we worked together, both organizations, during that time. There were things that were proposed legislation on the docket that you won't hear about until it happens, and it's too late unless you're plugged in. And that's the scary part, really. And, you know, the last thing I think I heard was the executive order about non-compete agreements. And, you know, my opinion doesn't really matter at this point, but there's just, you have to stay plugged in and you have to band together so that we can, as business owners, try to create this pro-business environment, or at least shift things in New Jersey from where they've gone. What are your thoughts, Michele, on the fact that last year New Jersey was the only state in the nation that went out and bonded?
I got a lot of thoughts on that. You know, it was a terrible, downright terrible decision, and one that we did not need at all. And we said that, and we had the data to back it up. I mean, we were out there again with a very, very loud voice. I mean, the state literally borrowed to create surplus when we already had surplus and a rainy day fund, right? And when do you tap rainy day fund? I mean, come on, it was pouring. Forget rainy day. We had a monsoon, right? And we had the money there. You know, why did we think that we didn't need that money? You know, they severely underestimated, they being the governor and our policymakers, severely underestimated the revenues for 2020, 2021, which we knew would overperform because of the tax increases that they put in the last couple of years. You know, the millionaires tax, the CBT, the sales tax, right? Those things we knew were going to overperform because they were increased. It's just natural economics. And sure enough, they did. And so now we borrowed all that money without the need to do it. And guess what? We're doing a great job spending that money because we just passed a budget that is like a 15% increase year over year. It's staggering and it's a little bit frightening. So we got to keep our eye on and mine. We got to mine this spending as we go forward.
So let's talk about that budget, because it is showing a surplus, to your point. And what does that mean for the business community? What does that mean overall for us as residents in New Jersey?
Yeah, so right now, so I'll say that there were we'll say there were some responsible decisions made that helps us. That money was used, for example, to make a full pension payment. Now, let me start by saying reform is needed in our pension and in our retiree health benefits, because it's just an unsustainable amount of money, okay? And those reforms still have to happen. So the fact that we can make a full payment this year, please let's not kid ourselves, because we can't make that payment year over year, right? And the only way we'll do that again is to have to increase taxes, because where else will revenue come from? Because we're not going to have all this federal money keep coming into us. But we had that money, a one-time payment like that, but let's manage the expectation that we can't afford that year over year. But what did that do? Because we can't, we were hoping that we could turn around and pay back that $4.4 billion so that we don't have it for the future. And we can't use federal money to do that. And the way that our state unfortunately bonded, which again, they said they wouldn't do this, right? But they bonded in a way that we can't pay back immediately. But what we can do by making that full pension payment is we do defease in a different way, right? So we are taking down our debt liabilities by doing that, which increases our bonding. Which is good. The street really liked that, Wall Street. So that was important. And there were a few other good investments that were made. But the key to this and any of the federal money too is one-time payments. We cannot use money that we have today to stand up new programs that are going to have to be funded into the future when we don't have that recurring revenue. We got to be very, very careful about that.
So you mentioned a couple times in that about the federal money, right, with the CARES Act and the American Rescue money that New Jersey and many other states all got in the last year. What can we do as a state with that money? What are we allowed to do based on the parameters that the federal government gave us when they gave us that money? And do you think New Jersey is using it the best way that they possibly can?
So let's start with the CARES Act, because we had that money here for well over a year. And I think what was significantly frustrating about that is we've had that money here for well over a year. And we sat on that money for months and months and months. And a lot of the bills you see the governor signing into law right now we're thrilled at the money coming to business. Okay. There's about, close to $1 billion that has been put on the street for business. That's significant. Every single program that rolled out was oversubscribed. We just can't, there's just not enough federal money to fill the gaps of what business has suffered over the last year. But our question was, where was that money 6 and 8 months ago, right? I mean, I want to give you just a quick data point is, we're down 40-something% in small business across the state of New Jersey. I say 40-something because unfortunately that number keeps going up every day. And when I say down, I mean from January 2020 to today, we're down something like 42% of small businesses across the state of New Jersey. That is staggering number, staggering, right? And so we're like, why are we sitting on that money? Get that money out as quick as possible to business so we can save everyone that we possibly can, right? All right, so that money is getting out on the street. That's CARES Act money. And now we look at the rescue. The rescue plan is the next big amount of money that is now it's in the state, but the state has been waiting for the final guidance on this. Very, very broad how we can use this. We can't use it to pay down debt, right? So that we know we can't do, unfortunately, right? But pretty much across the board, we can use it for infrastructure, workforce development, replenish our UI fund, innovation, direct money to business. I mean, it's very, support our schools, safety net programs. It's very, very broad. And as you know, we can almost make the case that anything that we touch was affected by COVID. So if it's COVID affected, you can use that money toward it. NJBIA and the New Jersey Business Coalition, which is a coalition of over 140 businesses that NJBIA stood up over a year ago, business and nonprofit leaders to work together in order to enable policy all through COVID. We supplied to the governor's office what we called a soft landing document, which made recommendations on how to spend that money. So it's not just what we spend the money on, but it's how we spend it also. Process is so important. I'm a true believer in good governance, right? What we need the legislature to be engaged, and the Joint Budget Oversight Committee is engaged now. But we also need a central place where all these decisions are going to be made, because not only did the state get money, but counties got money, school districts got money, utility, the small little infrastructure groups around the state got money. So we need to coordinate the efforts on how we spend this money. That's the first most important. So we said, have a central location, just like we had the Sandy's post Sandy and that office to coordinate. Let's get a coordination of this spending. The second thing is we have until 2024 to spend that money. So let's please look comprehensively and a little bit long-term. Let's just not dump it all into next year's, budget and spending. And then third, and most important, I'll repeat this again because it's worth repeating. These have to be one-time spends that don't create new programs that need sustainable funding for the future, or else we're going to create fiscal cliffs. And so we have to be really, really careful on where we put this money. And ensure that we don't need more money coming in the back end, 5, 10, 15 years from now, in order to keep those programs, going. So
you mentioned, and I just want to clarify this for those on the call, that the money is getting out on the street. Now, we've seen a lot of the money come through the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, the NJEDA. And I think yesterday or the day before, he signed something to put even more money into those funds. And I know all of those were oversubscribed, as you mentioned. Are there any other avenues where business owners can look for funding other than the NJEDA at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. The SBA still has loan programs out there. I don't believe there's grant programs left at the SBA. And then the federal government has had a couple of, different types of loan programs, but the Small Business Association, or your local SBDC, Small Business Development Centers, they can tune you in and they can actually help you to, fill out the applications and stuff. So there is still federal loan programs out there for businesses as well. And then in some communities, there are some local funds. I just know, for example, in Trenton, there was a community fund, BIA actually contributed to the community fund. A lot of the local communities have funds for business as well. So you want to talk to your, be it in your community or your county, go to your county economic development office and say, hey, are there community funds here? And then there are some philanthropic funds out there as well, depending upon, what you need money for. The First Lady has the Pandemic Relief Fund. That's a little more toward vulnerable communities. But depending what you're looking to fund, there are opportunities. I encourage you, go to njbia.org, go to our page on COVID, where we have links to all of these resources. Very, very comprehensive resource page there on our website.
That's terrific. Thank you. Yeah, I know we drove some of our clients to different county websites and county programs that existed during the height of the pandemic. Karen, before we move over to taxes, any questions on this subject that came through?
Not exactly on this particular subject, but a question did come through curious about Michelle's and NJBIA's thoughts on the implications that the non-compete would cause, the potential for that.
Yeah, I mean, there are, anytime a business looks to stay or relocate, and we can talk about outmigration for an hour. In fact, Cal, because I've done the outmigration presentation for your group, right, for many years. Anytime a business is looking at the business climate, they look microscopically at things just like this, right? I mean, this is yet again, people don't realize the significance that a policy like that has. This and all the policies right now too about gig workers and misclassification. Look, nobody wants companies to cheat. Right? When I stand up for business, I stand up for people who play by the rules. All right. And I'm very proud to say that 99% of businesses play by the rules. All right. However, we are always trying to solve for that less than 1% who cheat on something. And when we do that, we think we're solving for a problem that probably doesn't even exist. And if we would just go and hold people accountable to those who are breaking the rules, as opposed to taking all the good guys along down these paths of bad policy, we'd be in a much better place. So, Cal, I do think that has a chilling effect for sure on business.
Certainly a major impact on a lot of my clients in their space.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's shift gears and talk a little bit of tax policy. I'm going to have Brittany throw up another survey, and this one's kind of a little bit of a trick question. Who on this call thinks that they pay too much in taxes? Trying to be a little humorous on a Friday. I love people. I can actually see the results before Brittany publishes them. I would love to know who your accountants are for those who don't feel that they pay too much in taxes. Interesting
Wow.
results. Not
I'm
what I
shocked.
expected. Me too. Me too. So again, let's stay kind of specific to New Jersey. And I talked about this a little bit earlier, where we tend to rank very, very poorly on, the states to do business in, and, tax rates overall, both for individual and for businesses. Can we talk a little bit, Michele, about tax policy and where we rank and what we hope to accomplish as a business organization into the future?
Yeah, sadly, we rank dead last in almost every category, whether it's property, income tax, corporate business tax. I mean, the list just goes on. And for the future, we can hope that we can hold the line. Like, I can't imagine taxes going down, by any means. But if we took on some of the structural challenges that we know are the, I call it like the albatross around our neck. And again, that's the pension and the retiree healthcare, as well as property taxes. The pension system takes up a major portion of our annual budget year over year. And again, I am not saying take something away from those who have already earned it. I'm saying we can absolutely reform it for the future. There's a reason why corporate America doesn't have pension programs anymore, right? They just kill your balance sheet. And we see how it just kills the state's balance sheet. It's incredible. And frankly, we know, what's very interesting is we know the next generation really wants to create wealth in different ways. The next generation doesn't have that much faith in institution, and so they want to control things better. And why don't we think about that and say, what are the products we could have out there that are better than these pension systems that are very, very much broken. So we have to reform that for the future workforce. That should help us. Property taxes are a direct result on how we fund education. And there are many studies about how we can, more responsibly fund K-12. Now, I want to say we're very proud to boast that we are the #1 K-12 delivery system in the nation right now. However, in any given year, we vie for that top spot with Massachusetts, who delivers that #2 and many times beats us at #1 at 30% less cost. Why is that? How come they were able to fix it? Because years ago, they called it Taxachusetts. And guess what? They don't call it Taxachusetts anymore, right? They really got their act together. So why can't we rip a page out of their playbook and take a look at it? And, we love that we are #1 in K-12. But I have to always remind folks that, going back to that outmigration for a minute, we are the #1 outmigrator of 18 to 34-year-olds. The fastest moving population across the entire nation are 18 to 34-year-olds leaving the state of New Jersey. What does that tell you? We make this huge investment, K-12, that's our future workforce, and then we let them leave. What's with that? So we have strategies on that, accessibility and affordability of post-secondary education in New Jersey. We have a workforce task force that we've been working with for about 4 years now. We issued a report that had 13 recommendations, 12 of which are in action and being taken care of, which is awesome. And now we have a second round coming on that. So, again, we're problem solvers at BIA. We look to the heart of what causes these high tax situations, and then we say, how can we mitigate that? And then we try to get to work on it.
You connected property taxes and education, and I actually was listening to a New Jersey specific economist talking about property taxes, and his perspective was people are not going to tolerate a downgrade in services. So they're used to having their trash picked up twice a week, or whatever the gamut of services might be in our different municipalities, and driven very much obviously by property taxes. And he was saying they're not going to go down in New Jersey no matter what happens, with money coming in or taxes on other sides. People just are not going to tolerate less services.
Sarah, it's a very fair statement. And I've said this many times, that people can't whine and not lean into change at the same time. You just can't. I just remember a great example, and this is so I told you my twins are 29, right? When my twins were young, I served on my school board for over 12 years, and we did coffee clutches, in our communities. And I remember hosting one at my house, and it was the whole issue of, how could what could we do around education so that our school budget wouldn't have to go up, year over year. And we had full-time kindergarten. And I will never forget some people saying, well, you know what, let's do part-time kindergarten, and that'll save us some resources. And I said, well, but wait a minute, articulation, and we got a great program, and our school district, it starts in kindergarten, and you really, really want to do that. And then I said, so how old are your kids, right? Well, of course, their kids already went through full-time kindergarten, right? So they're like willing to give it up for somebody else, but they'd never be willing to give it up for themselves. It is so true. And yet, I want to say on shared services, if you look at South Jersey, they have done a spectacular job on leaning into shared services without the loss of good service. Right? Community policing in and around Camden County, right? Collapsing all the local into a bigger type of force. And there's no loss in service at all, right? We can do that across the state. We need our residents and our policymakers to lean in and find those responsible shared resources and see if we can't make some change.
Great points. Go ahead, Kara.
Yeah, so I've had a few private messages come in here. Michelle, few people think you should run for governor, so let's put you out there on the ticket. So question about COVID increasing the amount of folks leaving New Jersey, but how about the folks coming to New Jersey from New York City and the other cities, and how does the in and out compare?
Yeah, so we have been fortunate that we are the recipient of the plight out of Manhattan, for sure. And that's why, again, these are folks of some affluence who are coming and buying the homes at a premium. So that's a good thing. However, and here's the thing: the data lags on our ability to track this, and so we're not going to know the results of this probably for a year to 18 months because we look at two data sources when it comes to outmigration paths. One is taxes, income taxes, because people pay their taxes and you see where they're paying from, right? So that's easy to follow, but it's also census data. And as census data gets updated, we can track. But I do want to tell you that we are being told, so as part of our business coalition, we do have the New Jersey Trucking Association, which includes the moving companies. And the moving companies are reporting, not only do they have a work shortage that's driving this, so let's be fair, but they are oversubscribed tenfold on moving people. And a lot of that movement is people out of the state of New Jersey, right? People are choosing to go to Texas, Florida, believe it or not, Idaho. Idaho is like the fastest rising state for in-migration. I'm like, do people love potatoes that much? It's like, wow, but people, that has to do with people moving with their wallets. And because, of our tax policies here, we have a lot of folks who have become more than snowbirds, right? So the historical snowbird, and again, you think snowbirds, these are people of affluence. This is money, okay? Snowbirds used to be 6 months, I leave after Christmas, go to Florida, to my Florida home, and I come back for Easter, right? And that was about 3.5 months. Snowbirds are now 6 months and a day, because 6 months and a day outside the state of New Jersey means that we don't tax your income tax because you're no longer a resident of New Jersey. I see it all along I'm at the shore. I see it all along the shore, right? The 6 month and a day is real. It's people avoiding that tax. I'll just give you a quick data point. Over 12 years of us studying all these numbers, right? Over 12 years, we've seen $24 billion of adjusted gross income leave the state of New Jersey. So it's not just the people factor, it's the movement of money and affluence. And when someone takes their money out of the state of New Jersey, 6 months and a day, that means their philanthropic giving goes with it as well. And that's real. And we know our nonprofits feel that. Also, their spending power leaves the state because they're buying the new car in that other state, right? They're going on vacation, not at the Jersey Shore and other places. So we have to be mindful of that. It's the outmigration is real. So our ability to know the effect of New Yorkers coming in because of COVID, we won't be able to judge those numbers probably for 18 months to 2 years.
So one more New Jersey item before we switch to some federal policies that are out there. When we were doing the planning call for this office hours, you shared a data point with us that the mean income level in New Jersey actually went up last year. And you talked a little bit about why that was and what that impact was going to be to the state economy. So can we share a little bit of that with the audience today?
Yeah, it's really incredible to think that in a year that we have had the highest level of unemployment in well over a decade, that the mean income tax could go up. Because stop and think about that for a minute. People are unemployed, but they're making more money. How could that be? All right. Well, federal stimulus. All right. So not only were there a few federal stimulus checks, right? Different qualifications for each one. All right. But people got those stimulus checks, tax-free, mind you. Okay. And there's the federal unemployment enhancer, which in the beginning was $600 and then now is $300. It makes a huge difference, because if you take someone who's maxing out on unemployment, which if you max out on unemployment, it's about $638, right? And you add $300 to that, you're talking about anywhere from $20 to $30 an hour. All right. So now if you're a frontline worker and you were making $12 an hour and you're making $25 an hour on unemployment, that's driving some portion of the hiring crisis as well, which I know we'll talk more specifically about. But that is just an incredible statistic to me that, that stimulus money drove up everyone. And look, people needed to live. I mean, thank God that the federal government stepped in. All right. However, that's not sustainable. And we are going to be, and we're getting it now, man, we're going to be paying for that for a long, long time.
Right, right. And since a lot of that money all came out of the federal pocket, let's talk about what policies are out there now at the federal level that might be pro-business, because I know we do have a pretty big hole to fill.
I'd love to point you to some. I mean, right now, the big infrastructure bill that's being bandied about. So if there was a responsible infrastructure bill that comes out of this, that'd absolutely be good for business. And the reason being, when we invest in infrastructure, we invest in long-term return on investment. And we will benefit from that because we've got infrastructure needs in this state significantly. I mean, everything from the traditional roads and bridges to our water infrastructure. I mean, we can go down the list. Energy, we got a lot of vulnerability in this state. And so an infrastructure bill is good for the economy and it's good for business because it drives jobs as well, right? It's not just the return on investment, but it puts people to work. The challenge in that is they are trying to make this like omnibus bill and throw in the kitchen sink, and they're using the definition of infrastructure way too broad. And in some means, it's more about operational versus, long-term sustainable capital projects. So we got to really watch that. And then, unfortunately, there's an increase in taxes, in there as well, especially corporate business tax. And we certainly do not need that.
Absolutely.
And we have no reversal of SALT. If we want to talk about good policy, right, the SALT, the state and local tax, which crushes the Northeast, particularly New Jersey, that deductibility, we need to get that taken care of. I'll do a shout out to Mikey Sherrill, because she has just been a fantastic champion for New Jersey in Congress. The things she did through COVID, and she's been battling this SALT issue. She's just been a great voice for us down in DC.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's pivot off of taxes and go into a deep dive on the labor market. And Brittany has our last survey question of the morning. For those business owners on the call, are any of you having trouble hiring or retaining employees in the last 6 months to a year? This one's falling exactly where I would have expected it to. Michelle, I don't think you'll be surprised when Brittany publishes the results. Yeah, just about every person who's a business owner that I've talked to. Michelle, this is a deep question. You talked a little bit about the stimulus money and having, the extra unemployment, but there's also, issues with visas and things like that. So why can't businesses hire? And again, I know this is a really deep question.
Now, this is real, and this is scary, and this isn't going away. This is much bigger than the $300 federal unemployment enhancer. However, again, I will say that once people got accustomed to having that higher income, it has made many jobs ill attractive. What we have going on right now, first of all, we still have childcare crisis in the state. A lot of people still have an inability to have their young children taken care of the way that they were before, and that causes people to have to continue to stay out of the labor market, right? And we've been battling that. I mean, folks will say, "Oh, but the childcare facilities are open 100%. What's the problem?" There are still some mandates on childcare industry that causes their inability to group children in a way that allows them to maximize their staffing. And so while these facilities are open 100%, they actually can't take in more students because of some of these requirements on how they operate during the day. And we keep, we have been pounding this with the governor's office, pounding it because they take all the safety precautions in these facilities, right? We're like, we got to get these kids placed. And obviously we know during school, the whole issue with, kids being home with remote. So childcare played a big role in people being out of the market. The $300, did as well. And then people just having, a fear of safety, which we should be coming out of that. Because my God, everybody's out. Like if you can be traveling and you're out shopping, you should be, getting back to your job. But here's my bigger concern, more holistically and long term, because people have, because we're competing not just in vertical industries, right? It's not like the restaurant's competing with the restaurant. No, the restaurant's competing with Amazon, right? The manufacturer is competing with Amazon. The nursing home is competing with McDonald's, okay? Think about the not pretty jobs that are out there. The line workers, the cooks, the dishwashers, people who are housekeepers in the hotels that we stay at, people working in nursing homes, right? Childcare workers. Think of the not sexy jobs. And think of what those jobs pay historically, all right? And now people are saying, well, wait a minute, I can go get this other job and make $20, $25 an hour. Why am I gonna go take that crappy job? That's real. So this competition across verticals is real. Here's the challenge in this though. We're lacking skills for these jobs that require a little bit of a higher skill for this higher salary. And we need people to skill up. And so this is why we have to invest in workforce development. Because what we do have is we have folks just hiring bodies right now and having to skill up those folks on resources that they don't really have to do that. So we got to get this workforce development money out there on the street, and we got to skill up our folks. I'm gravely concerned about the future of the hospitality and tourism industry, gravely concerned for this reason that I just discussed. People not wanting to work in restaurants. And the flip of this is, so every time I bring this up with a policymaker, they say, well, Michele, it's because your companies aren't paying enough money. I hear it every time. And I say, those who can pay more do. And they always did because they want to attract the best and the brightest. They give benefits, they give flexibility, they lean into the workforce. Those who don't, it's an economics discussion. There are just positions that economically you cannot make the business model work at a certain level of wages. And that's where I'm really worried about this inflation. We really have, we have inflated the value of an entry level position. It's called entry level for a reason. All right. You get into an entry level position, you build your skills and you rise. People just want to skip it. They just want to immediately, get to the 5th floor without having the skills to be on the 5th floor and expect that we're going to pay them to be on the 5th floor, even though they don't have the skills for it. That is real. It's going on right now. And the workforce really owns the discussion. So we got to work our way through this. We got a ways to go in this crisis.
This is not going to resolve itself soon, huh?
The fall, we're going to see some movement in the fall when kids go back to school and when the $300 is gone. We will see movement. The problem is the worker is demanding the higher salary. And those companies that can't afford it are just going to continue to drop off. They're closing, they're cutting their hours. I'll use a restaurant, again, I'll just use a restaurant as an example because this is a real story. I've got a restaurant who, they're only open 4 days a week, only doing delivery because they can't hire servers. All right. I've got, and the grandfather who's 74 years old, is the one washing the dishes, right? How many of you have gone into restaurants and now you're getting, plastic cups instead of glass, right? Because we don't have dishwashers. Okay? And who hasn't gone into a retail store where you have not seen a sign either that says help wanted, or that says, we hope to see you in September, we're closed for now, or that says, please be patient with us because we have limited staff working for you today. I have not been in any store where I have not seen one of those 3 signs.
Absolutely. Stores and restaurants, both of them. It's, some, like you said, just limited hours. And after being closed for so long, it's almost an impossibility that they're going to continue, to have a long runway as New Jersey business owners.
Absolutely. And again, and for a vulnerable population, childcare and senior care, really concerned. The demands being put on the nonprofit industry to deliver services right now. And, where you have fee for service, the state doesn't pay enough to cover the costs for any of those workers. And the gaps are getting bigger. And remember, I talked about that philanthropic money to make up the difference. It's just not there like it was before. A lot of challenges we have. I feel like I'm being such a downer on a Friday morning, right? I mean, let's think about this. All creates tremendous opportunity for us, right? But we need to lean in, like we need to be around the table right now with comprehensive discussions about how are we enabling the future of the workforce? What are those jobs? Dr. Joel Bloom, NJIT, said, and this is about technology and innovation. We are training people today, right now, today, meaning like today, Friday, for jobs we didn't think we were going to have to be training them for until 2024. That's what COVID has done, is accelerated the pace of technology. And what we're doing is creating credential and certification programs to get people with, just 6 weeks to 6 months to get a credential that says, I know how to operate this one thing, so we can flip this switch, because that's a new thing that we weren't expecting to have just yet. So if we lean into these discussions and say, what do we need, and get the workforce, development going, and get a comprehensive plan, I know we'll be okay, because we always are. We're so resilient. We find a way through anything, right?
Absolutely. And you mentioned childcare being a huge reason that there was such a labor shortage. And the fact is that just seems to affect women more than men. And there's been a huge exit of women from the workforce in all levels of industry and jobs. And that's something that we have to repair as well as a state, I think.
Very disparate treatment. We saw that. And I'm sure, anyone on this call that either, has young children and worked from home and experienced it, or has a staff with young children. I mean, I looked in the eyes of my staff members who were working remotely with young children at home, and I saw their pain, and their the pain is this, and I know it, it's mother guilt, right? Because here you are trying to be everything to everybody. You got to be there for your, for your boss and your employer, and you're watching your child, struggle on remote learning, and you have to be the teacher, and you're like, how can I can't fail my child, right? I mean, and that now leads to the mental health crisis that we have going on across the board. We were saying this earlier, 2 of 1, everybody's mental health is in a different place than we were 18 months ago. And as employers and people who are responsible for other people, we need to be conscious and cognizant of that. And we need to do anything we can to help our workforce through this, because that's real also. It really is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So New Jersey specific on the unemployment side, right? We've kind of emptied the fund to a certain extent at a much more rapid pace than probably we ever expected. There's going to be a need to replenish that. Maybe we can use some federal dollars for that. Maybe they increase the tax to business owners over a time. But that's also playing into the mandated minimum wage increase that's coming up in future years. So how do those two interplay, and is it just more negativity for business owners to have to deal with?
The concern right now is we don't have visibility to the payroll increase to fund the UI, right? There was a three-year plan, which we were really happy. This is a little technical, but they extended out those payments a little more. There's these different schedules that they can follow. And we were pleased that what was negotiated a year ago helped the employer to more slowly tick up that number. However, July 1st came and went, and usually it's at the beginning of the fiscal year that increase will come. It doesn't have to come on July 1st, but we are anticipating that it's going to come probably before the new year, and we just can't get an answer on what it's going to be. And the fund needs to be replenished. We have advocated again tirelessly for using the rescue money. Many states, I don't know the exact number, but a majority of states are using rescue money in order to fund that, so we don't have to put it on the backs of business. And we just remind our policymakers, increasing anything right now, just $1 more is significantly difficult, especially, yes, as you have the minimum wage continuing to go up. I will tell you that the 5-year ramp up to $15 an hour is almost a non-discussion at this point, because everybody's forced to pay more than $15 an hour right now. And that's my super concern about the inflation on the value of an entry-level position and what that means to every other job, above it and for the long term. So once you give people money, you just can't take it back, right? You can't take it back.
Right. And we talked at the beginning of the call too about how it's an employee's market. I mean, we're hiring and we're talking to recruiters all the time in our industry, and you can basically ask for whatever you want, and employers are giving it to a certain extent in ways that we've not seen before. And I can only speak to our industry, but I don't know what you're seeing across all your different members as far as it's really the workers market right now.
Oh, 110%. I mean, so, I'm an attorney by trade, and I believe in the scales of justice. And so I'm always about balance. And this is way out of whack right now, like way out of whack. The employers are suffering, significantly. And the workforce, definitely has the better deck of cards at the table. So we need to find a way to bring some balance. We talk about funding programs and the money that the governor just signed, into law that EDA is going to be distributing. You can use that for payroll. And so we're saying to folks, think about those hiring bonuses, right? Don't put it into the hourly salary, put it into a hiring bonus that gives them the same, the same kind of impact at the end. Because again, once you increase the hourly wage, you're not putting that cat back in the bag. You're just not. So definitely hiring bonuses is a big deal. The challenge with that also, though, and retention bonuses, because here's the challenge. I can advocate, and we have been right now, for the tourism industry, the month of August is the highest earning month of the year, right? They're not going to appreciate that because number one, they're on 30% of their workforce down right now. Number two, in August, all the kids go back to school. Whether it's college or whether it's high school sport camps, band camp, you name it, they're coming out of the workforce. That's going to be another 30% hit to the workforce. Okay. You can't deliver products and services when you are down 60% of your work. It's just impossible. And we don't have the J1 visa workers here. The J1 visa workers year over year were the workforce that filled the gap for August and September that allowed the tourism industry to make the money they need to make it over until the next season, right? We don't have J1 visa workers because the program was broken at the federal level. And that was a federal issue. Though, we did ask our governor time over time to personally use his relationship with the president to say this is crisis and critical for the state of New Jersey, and we couldn't get him to sign that letter. So that was quite a shame. Again, though, I'll give a huge shout out to Mikey Sherrill because she was trying to shepherd that for us on the J1 visa program. So that's going to be a real impact to tourism in August. So stay tuned for those of you at the shore. Sarah, you're getting ready to start your week at the shore. You'll still be good. You're getting out before August, but you'll see. And then the inflation side on the other end of this is the price of the products and services are just by nature gonna have to go up as well.
Absolutely.
Excuse me 1 second, Michelle. A question came in. Could you repeat the name of the program that you were discussing before you talked about the J1 visas? You said that you were working on something with the state on, there was a certain program. Oh,
the UI fund, the unemployment insurance to fund the unemployment insurance.
Had to do with hiring bonuses.
Oh, so the idea of hiring bonuses, yes. That there would be, so what I was saying is that the grant programs that EDA has right now that they're getting ready to stand up, you can use that money for payroll. And we're encouraging people to think about sign-on bonuses, but also think about the workforce that was with you the whole time because of the inequity you're going to have from those workers who were here for the last, 6 months working their tails off when you now give someone $1,000 to come in. And so the need for retention bonus might be in there as well. I think that was what I was discussing. Mm-hmm.
Right. And that the new NJEDA can be used for payroll purposes too.
Yes. And to Cal's point in the chat, it's across every industry. Cal, you're absolutely right. We're seeing it in manufacturing. We're seeing it in agriculture. We're seeing it in bank tellers, right? Childcare. It's across every industry is the hiring crisis. It's not just tourism and hospitality at all. It's everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know we talked about the outmigration of New Jersey, the different populations, the retiring snowbirds that you talked about, the 18 to 34-year-olds. And I know that the New Jersey Society of CPAs did a survey last quarter that more than half of its members, right? So now CPAs who are advising business owners in the state are advising their clients to leave the state for predominantly tax reasons. And what we're seeing a lot of it's now that sort of I guess it's the boomer generation who own businesses who aren't really retiring, but they figured out a way to be virtual or to change their business model so that they can move to a different state and still run their business. And they're taking their businesses with them now. They're not just taking their retirement wealth. They're not just taking their higher education. They're taking that sort of middle generation business with them. And I think that, to your point on some other issues, Michele, we're not going to see that impact for a couple more years, even though it's happening right now.
No, absolutely. I mean, that trend, unfortunately, just continues. And the ability to now lean into remote work, provides just another enhancement and incentive. Number one, for the workforce, if you can kind of work from anywhere and just come in to collaborate once a month, well, you can hop on a plane and go collaborate once a month. And so, we know that New Jersey is extremely, extremely expensive for, again, those 18 to 34-year-olds. I live it with my own kids and the rent. I have one that's an out-migrator, and one is still in the state. But my God, when he's like looking for an apartment and what it costs, and it's like, if you don't have 3 people sharing an apartment, like, you just can't afford it. And people can afford it in other states. So now, if you're young and you can't afford an apartment in New Jersey and you can work remotely, guess what? You're moving somewhere where the cost of living is a little more tolerable for you. And to those businesses, these are folks who took advantage of the K-12 system from the other side, got their kids through, right? And now said, I'm downsizing, I'm getting out of Dodge, and I'm going to become that, potentially that snowbird, or I'm just out totally. And we do see it, unfortunately.
Right. Any last questions for Michele before we hit some final thoughts before we wrap it up today? You covered it that well, Michele.
Well, I think, again, I never want to finish on a down. I always say, look, I'm the biggest cheerleader for the state of New Jersey. My glass is always half full. I have these big blue and gold pom-poms. My pom-poms weigh about 1,000 pounds right now. Okay, but we have to be bullish on New Jersey. We have a lot of opportunity ahead of us. We need to lean into that opportunity. We need to rethink, every one of us. We need to rethink our business model. And we need to rethink how we work with our workforce. It is incumbent upon us as leaders and business owners, the business model and our workforce. We really need to get a blank piece of paper right now and say, what opportunities present to me that I can maximize? What did I learn during COVID that was a good thing? What did I learn that was a bad thing? Where do my own culture and values for my organization fit in there? What worked and what didn't? And we can all really come out of this, and we can be stronger than we were before. I do believe that.
Absolutely. And I just want to echo, Michele, what you said earlier, that we have to band together as business owners. You said we're not a union, but we really need to get together in a way that we can really make impact and change together as a group.
Absolutely. I'm just putting my email in the chat.
Terrific.
So if anybody wants to follow up with a question or a thought, because we don't make things up at BIA. We're always based on data, right? We don't pontificate. We don't shoot from the hip. We tell real stories, and there's always data behind it, but we're informed by what you experience each and every day. And so you need to channel to me your needs and your challenges and your opportunities so that we can turn that into proactive good policy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you to the audience for attending today. There is hope for New Jersey. We have to just get there together. Michele, thank you so much for all of your knowledge and sharing all of the data that you and the NJBIA have collected over the last several months. I appreciate everything that you guys do for the state and for its business owners. Anybody that wants to join us for next month's happy hour, I wish, next month's office hour, you can tell it's Friday. For next month's office hour, we'll be having one in August. If you have any additional topics that you would like to hear about, please send them to me, put them in the chat, send them to Karen. We want to make sure that these are meaningful to you and we're covering those topics that matter most. So again, happy Friday. Thank you all for attending. Have a safe and happy weekend.